Good morning, Paul. Good. You're hacking on my House colleagues just a little bit. That was Representative Miles.
It was Miles. What's the protocol as far as a tie is concerned? You have to have a tie before you come to the well?
You're supposed to have a tie on if you are, if you're addressing
in the house.
If you're addressing the body and in the house. And the rules are a little lax on Mondays and Fridays because we're usually in and out pretty quick. But if you're going to go to the well, you need that tie on.
How are you doing? Everything
good.
Okay?
We're good. We're wide
Everybody's surviving at this point in juncture in the 2023 session.
Everybody's surviving. We're kind of in the home stretch, and
right.
Looks like this is when the long knives come out, they say.
Well, yeah, I mean, this one really gets interesting, and boy, it really is nice that we have the transparency now that we didn't have many because of technology and also because of the Republicans' mandate that promised this, where you can view this at any time on YouTube. As far as the video is concerned, it is a great asset, and as far as audio and also video, so. I mean, and that's kind of changed things in the House and Senate. It keeps you guys on guard, too, doesn't it?
Well, I mean,
or do you just forget about it?
To some extent, you just forget about it because, look, with cell phones and cameras now, you're always
that's a very good point.
Being recorded and put out there, and folks are looking for a gotcha moment. But, look, to have – whether it's committee meetings or whether it's work on the floor, to have folks tuned in and paying attention, that's a good thing.
You're absolutely right because we talk about it. And I mentioned this morning. Some of the problems we're having with folks voting for bad leadership is they have no idea what's going on. They just don't know the ins and outs. And if you don't do a little studying on that one, you turn into Portland. Period.
Look, I speak to my Rotary clubs and the different folks back home, on a regular basis, and they used to say, "How could y'all do that?" Or "I don't understand this or that." And after they watch a little bit, they're like, "I get it now. I understand the frustration level or what you're dealing with, that sort of thing." So that's a good thing.
The worst thing in the world, especially during an election period, and you try to explain this to some folks, is certainly now with feedback like C-Spire text line, people are angry about some things. Why did he vote for this or why did he vote for that? And there's so much that goes into that. If you voted against something, and you're a conservative and you don't understand it, you just got to give them the benefit of the doubt, him or her, before you make a judgment on that one.
That's right.
Because and if there's not, and you do your homework, fine. Vote against him or her, and then back somebody else. But at least do the study on that one. Late yesterday, the Appropriation Committee, they met, and again, those also are televised, and I was watching as much as I could of that yesterday, and again, this was the effort to kind of come out with some possible bill on redoing the MAEP. Speak to that one as a Speaker Pro Tem and also as just a member of the House, the bill and exactly what is going on there.
Well, certainly, I don't know all the inner workings of the other end of the chamber, so I'm not exactly sure how all that went down. I do know it was a little bit different in that they called it a joint committee meeting of appropriations and education, as I understand it, which, I'm glad to know that's in their arsenal now. So when they keep double referring all our bills, maybe they can just call two committees at one time and pass them out of both. So that's it.
All right.
I am glad to know the Lieutenant Governor has that arrow in his quiver. So we'll keep that in mind as we move forward with double
little strategizing there.
Yeah, it was. So that was, talk about killing two birds with one stone. But anyway, they did bring up, as I understand it, an appropriations bill as well as a MAP funding formula bill. And I believe those were two House bills that got amended to put their language in it regarding tweaks they want to make to the MAP formula, as well as fully funding this new tweaked formula that they passed out of committee yesterday.
I'm just getting vibes here that it's got a long way to go in the House. Am I right or wrong about that?
Well, certainly, it may have a long way to go in the Senate. I don't know. It looks like that thing was greased up pretty good from the votes yesterday. So, I'm assuming they've counted their votes and they'll pass it off the Senate floor rather handily. But it would have a long way to go. You're talking about adding as I understand it, $181 million of recurring expense to the taxpayers.
This would be in the way that they reconstitute the formula. If you don't reconstitute the formula, it would be $261 million that we've got to write a check for to put more money into education. 261.
Well,
if you reconstituted it,
you could write a check for any amount and put new dollars in.
Yeah.
To get, quote, credit for fully funding the MAEP formula, it would take about 260, 270 of new money this year. And if you, again, I hadn't looked at length to their formula, and I'm not, their reworking of the formula may be something that we want to look at. I don't know. We'll look at it in time. But if you take their new formula that they passed yesterday, by their words, it would need $181 million of new dollars. That's over and above the $250 million new dollars we put in last year for teacher pay raises. So you're talking about adding a recurring expense of $181. And hey, as a house, we hadn't seen what they're wanting to cut other places in the state budget.
They're not working off a House bill on this. They're working
No, they just took a House bill that had some code sections.
Here's the other thing where it's got a long way to go, because even Dennis DeBar said this, and we've been trying to get him on the air lately and not successful, but he said there are 4 districts that are going to lose money when you factor in the teacher pay raise from last year. One of them is Laurel. Laurel would lose $1 million. So 4 districts were heavily impacted because of the way that they were going to do this, the reconstituted or whatever they're talking about. So I think a lot of school districts would want time. Here's what is a little bit puzzling to me. This hasn't been an issue for the entire session, or for that matter, even during the summertime leading up to the session. And all of a sudden, in this election year, boom, we're going to fully fund. Now, we were led into this saying, you guys go get a rebate, or you're going to get your grocery taxes cut. The only people saying that now is Brandon Presley. So all of a sudden we go, you're not going to get a rebate, you're not going to get your cut, but we're going to put that money somewhere else and we're going to give it to education. My question is, why don't we if we're going to do this and it comes over to the House, put a school choice amendment on there? If you want to improve education the best possible way under capitalism, is put competitiveness in it.
I think you would find lots of folks who would agree with you on the school choice issue or amendment, as you say. I just think, look, changing a formula that's been around for over 25 years, spending almost $200 million new dollars on anything in the state budget is troublesome here right at the end of the session, revealed on the deadline week. So that part in of itself, it's got a long ways to go. The issues you bring up, school choice, redoing the formula, average daily attendance, the way certain districts are counted. Like, for instance, Laurel's going to lose money because if we change the formula to address what we really know is going on in each particular school, there are going to certainly be winners and losers. That should tell you that the current formula we have is flawed in and of itself,
yes.
And that we're just propping up school districts. And that's not to pick on Laurel. I understand that they've lost a lot of student population, but the formula just keeps shoving the money over there and ignoring that fact. So that in and of itself should tell you there are inherently things wrong with it. The House passed a MAP formula rewrite a few years ago, and of course it failed in the Senate. So I'm anxious to look at their bill and see what they want to do. I think it's a good talking point going forward. I don't know how much traction it receives this session.
I will say this, that in most of these areas where you have schools that are suffering because they don't have enough tax base, that goes back to the leadership, most of it Democrat leadership, where the cities are drying up one way or the other, and it's affecting the schools.
That's correct.
In many of these places, there is no school choice, but in a capitalistic society, sometimes that will materialize. We'll let you get the rest of this in here. And sometimes that materializes with entrepreneurs coming in to fill that gap if it is allowed. So we'll talk more with this and other things. Jason White. Scott Delano from the Senate side will get his take on this coming up at 8:05. Well, music from the Doobie Brothers. Our guest in the house is Jason White, Speaker Pro Tem. Our C-Spire text line number 601-879-4395. Also reminding you it's available at any time at C-Spire Channel 70 on TV and everywhere else at supertalktv.fm, as you well know. Supertalk Mississippi News Team covering your Mississippi stories. Stay up to date. Sign for our free weekly newsletter. Everybody's doing that. Supertalk.fm /newsletter. All right. Some of the bigger, you want anything else as far as this education thing, because that's the big news this morning that you want to put in here before we move on?
Not big news. Look, that's Senate news. That's a big deal to them. It's here pretty late. And again, like I was saying earlier to you, I have not seen what they want to trim in the budget to afford 181 million new state dollars of recurring expense going in. So it'll be interesting to see what they want to trim to find this money, and then we'll go from there. And I'm looking at your C-Spire text line that shows up. I guess these are Gerard's monitors, but Lance and Thomas and Greenwood and some others have got some decent ideas and things they're talking about.
Yes, they do. And I think everybody's saying the same thing.
They're talking about
I
things like, district consolidation. Everything's always about the kids, but it never ends up showing results. Show me some results. Run them like a business. Sounds like those guys maybe should be running for the legislature.
There is no meritocracy in the teaching profession, but then again, it's a socialist society where you've got to send your kid here or there, whether it's a failing school or not, and that has to change. Other states are doing this as far as, and that's the biggest movement across this country, is school choice.
No, and hey, Paul, let me say, you brought that up. I agree with you fully. I think that has to be part of any real comprehensive conversation about where we go as a state with our public education. And I'm all for looking at the formula. I'm all for putting money where it can make an impact. But we've got to also talk about all the failing districts throughout the state and the chronically failing districts. There's got to be a component that allows a family some other choice. And so that would be part of any comprehensive plan that I think the House entertains going forward. It would include things like that, things like really holding districts accountable. And so we'll get there in time. I don't think we'll work it out in the next 3 weeks, but I think we'll get there in time. And, hey, let me say this. Dennis DeBar is a decent, good guy. He's probably worked long and hard on this, and so I don't question his motives. I don't question his ability to look at the rewrite. I did notice some news clips last night that wanted to put everybody at ease that Hob Bryan had looked at this and he was okay with this formula. And I'm not really looking to appease Hob or what he, how he wants to write the formula. I think he wrote the one we've got now that doesn't work. So he's a fine guy, super smart fella. But my House Republican colleagues aren't necessarily looking to appease Hob Bryan and what he wants.
For many of us in this audience, that would be the death knell. If Hob Bryan puts his stamp of approval on it, we would run.
Well, I thought it was interesting. That was a talking point coming out of the Senate, Hob was good with this.
Well, but here's the other thing, Jason, too, that we've learned through experience, and not only me, but all the rest of us that are not in the legislature. Whenever these people like the Parents Campaign just bitch about needing more and more money, they never talk about meritocracy. They never talk about school choice. They never talk. They fight like hell against charter schools and anything that threatens the administration. So all we're asking, if we pour more money from our paychecks into this, let's have a little growth in the classroom and not the growth in administration. It's that simple.
It's that simple.
All right, we'll leave it and go to something else. There are other things out there that's going on, and some of the big bills that you want to talk about.
Well, there's still we started yesterday putting together, I guess what you'd say, what we're going to call our infrastructure package and what we want to do with some of this one-time money regarding capacity projects throughout the state and trying to get this 3-year plan off the ground and get some of that funded. I think you'll see the House today, tomorrow, coming forward with a plan that looks at something in the neighborhood of a total of about $800 million going toward infrastructure, $650 in capacity projects, replenishing the emergency road and bridge fund at $100 million, and then another 40 for some of that match money for some of the federal stuff that's coming down, as well as $10 million for intermodal stuff like ports, harbors, rail, and that sort of thing. So we're excited about that.
It's over what period of time are we talking about?
Well, that money would be appropriated this year and would really move way down. If you've seen that 3-year plan and the capacity projects that are on that list, it would really start moving a lot of those projects. Yep. And as I understand it from the executive director over there, that's about as much money as he can get out and get stuff going. That's shovel-ready projects that are ready to go. So,
this is mirroring the governor's proposal you're talking about?
Well, the governor's proposal was $1.3 billion, and so, for us, that may be just a little too far. Something we hadn't talked about this morning, and the Senate's proposal yesterday to spend almost $200 million new recurring dollars. Nobody's talking about that looming gorilla that's over there at PERS. They did agree to put their increase off for a year, but they've asked for about $250 million of recurring expense from the state side of putting into PERS. So that's going to have to be dealt with moving forward too. So we're a little bit cautious about recurring expense, but we are excited about the infrastructure package that we will unveil this week. And
is there a current bill to address that as far as PERS is concerned in the House?
No. We asked them, to stand down on the increase that their board had voted in that would have taken place this coming July, and so they have put that off until July of 24. And so we're going to take a long, hard look at that with them. And we've asked them to come up with solutions to it because the PERS board runs PERS. And so we've asked them to come up with solutions, and we'll all sit down and talk about it moving forward.
Did get a note from one of your counterparts over in the Senate, Senator Sparks, who said he was going to do this, and apparently he did. He filed a motion to reconsider on the HB4, your bill, I think it's Yancey's bill, on the tianeptine. And one of the reasons were it was a felony, and apparently the senator thought it should be a misdemeanor. So that was some news that happened yesterday.
Senator Sparks is one of the good guys over there, and I don't know if you know this or not, Paul, but he plays a mean guitar and sings very well.
I didn't know that.
You should ask him to bring it next time
really?
He comes on. He does.
Maybe,
he'll play you out of a segment, probably.
We'll see if he's got any CDs or anything and add him to the bumper rotation of Mississippi artists here.
Singing senator for sure.
Well, and then we'd have two from that region, wouldn't we? Medical radiation technologists, delete repealers, and I'm just looking at some of the bills that are still alive here. Somebody asked me one about the sports betting. Is anything alive on that as far as you know?
We sent a bill to the Senate that for mobile sports betting that we're probably still a year away from getting that kicked off and going. I do think you will see a movement, at least in the House next year, to pass a mobile sports betting bill. We're very close there. So the bill that is alive creates a study committee to look at it and come back and make recommendations next year. And so we saw that as a positive step toward getting in that direction.
I was kind of amazed. I don't see it here, and I'm not sure if it's still alive. The liquor store is opening on Sunday afternoon. I was amazed it got this far.
It got fairly down the road, but as I understand, there was a coup in Senate Finance meeting on a voice vote, and so the no's were very loud. And,
yes. Somebody threw the Bible at them, and they woke up or something. Is that what happened?
Meant to be heard. I think if Joel Carter had any hair, it got parted. He was presenting that bill, and the no shouts, as I understand it, were fairly loud and emphatic. So
I didn't even want to mention it on the air when it was alive. I thought, okay, maybe they don't know it, and we'll pass it one way or the other. I thought it was kind of crazy that hasn't passed one way or the other in the past, but. It is what it is.
Well, when you get to meddling over in the liquor world, things
let
get
me say this:
things get squirrely real quick.
3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday, if going and buying a bottle of wine for dinner is going to send you to hell, then you're past hell already. So I don't think that's going to do it. We had some other things out there as far as the EV bill. That's taken care of. I guess the governor's going to sign that one, or do you know?
I don't know, Paul. I would think he would.
It's going to be interesting.
But I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what the governor does with that.
Did you have any idea what the revenues were for February?
They're still preliminary, but we are still over estimate. As I understand it, we may only be over estimate. $15 million, give or take. So, but we're still over estimate, and we're still at $500 to $600 million over for the year. So. We're still looking good there, and looks like we're going to make it out with a large surplus again.
Good deal. Give the final thoughts to Jason White, who is the Speaker Pro Tem of the House, District 48. Coming up in the moment.